You know when you step outside in the middle of winter and the cold wind violently cuts through your jacket and you fiercely rub your hands together and furiously wish that tiny pale sun could step a little bit closer? Well, what if right now magic teleported the Earth to be exactly twice as close to the sun? Your very first thought is probably that we'd instantly melt into a literal puddle of space lava. But before we even talk about the heat, we absolutely have to talk about gravity. Right now we are zooming sideways at over 100,000 kilometers per hour just to maintain our orbit. If you drop us halfway to the sun but keep our current speed, physics has a massive problem. The sun's gravity would just grab us and pull us into a completely terrifying elliptical dive. But let's say a magical space wizard fixes our velocity so we get a perfectly circular orbit. Okay, so you look up and the very first thing you notice is the sun is huge. Because we cut the distance in half, it now visually takes up 4 times as much area. Physicists call this the inverse square law. We are getting hit with exactly 4 times the raw solar energy, and honestly, that is exactly where the real nightmare begins. Almost immediately, the global temperature skyrockets and the polar ice caps violently melt. Sea levels would rise unbelievably fast, flooding literally every coastal city in a matter of days. But drowning is the least of your worries. Because the water itself is getting extremely hot, within just a few short weeks, the entire equator becomes totally uninhabitable. The blistering heat is so intense that asphalt roads literally melt into sticky rivers of tar. Every forest on Earth would spontaneously catch fire, baking the continents in thick, choking smoke. Humanity's absolutely only desperate hope would be a panicked mass migration to Antarctica. For a brief, bizarre moment, the frozen continent actually gets a pleasantly tropical beach climate. But that sounds like good news, right? Well, I'm sorry to say, it is a brutal trap. Because the intense planetary heating doesn't just magically stop there, as temperatures push past 50 degrees Celsius, the oceans start furiously evaporating. Billions of tons of invisible water vapor violently push up into the atmosphere. And here's where it gets incredibly weird. Because water vapor is actually a powerful greenhouse gas, so all that steam forms a suffocating blanket, trapping even more solar heat, which predictably makes the planet even hotter than it was a minute ago. Scientists literally call this vicious, unyielding cycle a runaway greenhouse effect. The thermometer just relentlessly climbs until the oceans literally boil away. Imagine watching the Pacific Ocean aggressively bubble and hiss, exactly like a pot on a hot stove. Eventually, the atmospheric pressure from all that trapped steam becomes totally crushing. The surface temperature easily crosses 400 degrees, melting absolutely every trace of biology. But sadly, the Earth's structural torture isn't completely over just yet. Intense ultraviolet radiation from the closer sun literally snaps the water molecules apart, permanently separating the hydrogen atoms directly from the oxygen atoms. Hydrogen is incredibly light, so the solar wind blows it straight into the void. And without that hydrogen, you practically can never make real water again. Our beautiful oceans aren't just dried up, they are permanently deleted from the planet. The Earth simply becomes a scorched rock wrapped in a thick, toxic atmosphere of carbon dioxide. If that sounds strangely familiar to you, it's because that is exactly what happened to Venus. So moving closer to the sun wouldn't just give us a terrible sunburn, it instantly and irreversibly breaks the fragile machinery that makes life possible. And honestly, when you really think about it, that is deeply, profoundly unsettling. We literally just float through the frozen nothingness of space on this tiny wet rock, totally at the mercy of exactly how far away we are from a continuously exploding giant plasma ball. If we were a little further out, we'd be a solid ice block like Mars, and if we were just a tiny bit closer, we'd be a totally dead, boiled husk. We literally exist precisely on a razor-thin, terrifying tightrope of physics and distance. And the absolute only thing keeping us entirely alive is the invisible tether of gravity. So maybe next time you feel pretty chilly stepping outside, you will deeply and truly appreciate the cold, because that painful cold means we are kept safely at arm's length from the fiery monster. And maybe that's the wildest part of science. Realizing our boring, quiet orbit is a literal miracle. Anyway, this is Stixi. Thanks for hopelessly drifting through the void with me. and I'll see you next time.